It's 1982. You're sitting in front of a wood-paneled TV, the kind that hums with static before the picture clears. Suddenly, the sitcom cuts to black. A grainy, flickering emergency alert system broadcast fills the screen. It's the THNK protocol. A monotone voice, devoid of any human warmth, begins to explain Type 3 biological mimicry. It sounds like a government safety video for a chemical spill. But the diagrams are different. They show human silhouettes, but their arms are just a little too long, their necks slightly too thin. These are alternates, the voice says. The narrator goes through the steps: tell, hinder, identify, neutralize, know. It's clinical, bureaucratic, and strangely comforting in its order. But then a line of text appears at the bottom of the screen. If you recognize a flaw in your reflection, do not blink. It is waiting for the gap. The audio cuts out completely for 4 long seconds. The silence isn't empty. It feels heavy, like someone just stepped into the room behind you. I have a friend named Elias who still has a recording of that broadcast. He told me that as he watched it, the air in his living room changed. It didn't get cold like an air conditioner. It was a localized chill, smelling faintly of ozone and old damp copper. He looked down at his hands resting on the fabric of his armchair. For a fraction of a second, his skin didn't look like skin. It looked like wet, gray molded clay, still holding the fingerprint of whatever had shaped it. He blinked, and it was gone. Then he heard it. A soft, rhythmic thrumming began to vibrate the floorboards like a massive heart beating somewhere inside the walls. He sat perfectly still, trying to convince himself it was just the house settling. But then a voice started humming from the kitchen. It was his own voice, the exact pitch, the exact cadence. It was humming a song he had been thinking about all day, but one he hadn't sung out loud in years. He realized then that the identity breach mentioned wasn't just a threat. It was already happening. He held his breath, and the humming stopped at the exact same moment. The house was silent, but the silence was watching him. The TV screen flickered back to life, but the blue safety background was gone. In its place was a live, low-angle infrared feed. Elias felt his stomach drop as he realized he was looking at his own living room. There he was, sitting in the armchair, his back to the camera. The narrator's voice returned, but it was deeper now, slightly distorted. "Step 4, it said. Confirm your identity by reciting your social security number backwards." Elias began to whisper the numbers, his voice shaking. As he did, a second layer of audio joined in from the ceiling. It was his own voice again, but warped, echoing his words half a second later. He looked at the TV screen and saw a figure standing directly behind his chair. It was tall, shadows clinging to its elongated limbs like oily rags. Delia spun around, but the corner of the room was empty. Yet the floorboards creaked under a weight he couldn't see. He turned back to the TV. The figure on the screen was now leaning over his shoulder, its face pressed close to his head. A text overlay appeared. "He is not in the room. He is in the perception." The lights didn't flicker. They just began to dim into a deep, bruised purple. He realized the protocol wasn't a way to stay safe. It was a way for the entity to find him. Elias stood up and walked toward the hallway mirror. He told me the air felt thick, like he was walking through water. When he reached the glass, he saw his reflection. It was standing perfectly still, but its eyes weren't looking at him. They were focused on the empty space behind his right shoulder. The reflection slowly reached out its hand and touched the surface of the mirror from the inside. The glass didn't shatter. It rippled like water, making a wet, squelching sound that felt like it was happening inside his own ears. The reflection's fingers slid across the inside of the glass, leaving smears of something dark and translucent. Then the face began to shift. It didn't turn into a monster. It became a perfected version of Elias. The skin was smooth, like polished marble, and the eyes were a deep, unblinking black. It was the Uncanny Valley made flesh, something that looked so much like him that it made his own body feel like a poorly made costume. The entity leaned forward until its nose touched the glass, whispering his current street address in a voice more real than his own. The mirror cracked silently, a single spider web originating from the entity's finger. The TV screen went white before displaying a final clinical slide. Case study 402, successful replacement. It listed the details with cold efficiency. Subject exhibits 99.8% biological accuracy. Discrepancy. Subject no longer requires sleep. The image on the screen showed the new Elias in the mirror, calmly adjusting his tie, looking directly into the camera with a look of predatory pity. The narrator's final instruction was a whisper that felt like it came from right behind the viewer's ear. Do not check the closet behind you. If you feel a change in air pressure, it means the integration has already moved to your sector. The screen faded to black. 10 seconds of total silence passed. Then the sound of a single, deep, satisfied breath echoed in the room. A final message appeared in white text. Close your eyes. We'll take it from here. If you're listening to this right now, I have one piece of advice. Don't look in the mirror, and whatever you do, don't blink. They're already waiting for the gap.